On the last part, Goku and Gohan mastered Super Saiyan God before fighting the androids and were able to successfully eliminate the androids. So we move on into the Cell Saga officially, where Trunks, Nappa and Gohan face off against Imperfect Cell. However, Imperfect Cell had a trick up his sleeve. Meanwhile, Piccolo finally decides to fuse with Kami as usual. Imperfect Cell was more of a threat than he initially assumed. Piccolo rushes to the scene as quickly as possible while Imperfect Cell powers up and his aura flares to a red, brightish color, and he transforms into a Super Saiyan God-like transformation. At this point, he had already defeated the 3 Super Saiyan Gods, and now Piccolo faces off against Imperfect Cell in his God form. Piccolo has also been training and refining his God powers, his God Ki. However, this Imperfect Cell was too much for him to handle, as he sends Piccolo flying away. With a single Ki blast, he had injured Piccolo so much that he was no longer in any shape to fight, and he was the strongest Z fighter there currently. Krillin finally decided to intervene, using a solar flare allowing them to escape unnoticed. Cell wasn't really pleased, however, he will hunt them down eventually. Meanwhile, in the wasteland, Vegeta finally decides to confront Cell. Cell decides to power up as well into his Imperfect Cell form, however Vegeta merely smirks. This was him after a year of training in the hyperbolic time chamber. Trunks looks on. He knew that Vegeta had this handled. So Vegeta shows off his real power. He's transforming. His power is increasing rapidly. Cell's amazed as Vegeta transforms into a blue-like form. Nothing seen before. Vegeta calls this Super Saiyan Blue. Vegeta tells Cell this was his end, and now they prepare to fight. Cell is actually pretty alarmed at this. Cell has no idea whether he is able to defeat Vegeta. So let's get straight into the video. So Vegeta and Super Saiyan Blue faces off against Imperfect Cell in his God transformation, and immediately they clash, exchanging blows rapidly and quickly. No one could process their movements, and the entire earth shakes with each collision. Finally, Vegeta gets an upper hand, kicking Cell in the stomach, sending him flying away. Cell catches himself in the air, and he's pissed. There's no way he was gonna lose to this Saiyan. Vegeta prepares a Gallic gun before launching it straight towards Cell. Cell prepares a Kamehameha as well and launches it towards Vegeta's Gallic gun. Both fighters were putting their utmost effort into trying to win this beam clash. Cell's anger puts him on an edge temporarily over Super Saiyan Blue Vegeta. However, Vegeta thinks back to the good memories he has on Earth. The fun he had actually when he was training with Trunks in the hyperbolic time chamber, the good memories he had with Bulma, and finally acknowledges Earth as home, a place that he's willing to protect with his life, as he puts all he has into his Gallic gun, overwhelming Cell and destroying him permanently. Cell was eradicated and couldn't even regenerate. Vegeta huffs a sigh of relief. He had defeated Cell. Meanwhile, Goku and Gohan exit the hyperbolic time chamber. Glad to see that Cell is eliminated, but Goku is kinda bummed. He wanted to test out this Super Saiyan Blue power-up against Cell, but well, there will be a stronger opponent in the future, and he will be ready to face it. So, we move on into the Busara. However, before we do that, one thing to note is that Goku doesn't die in this scenario, so this will cause major changes in the upcoming arc. So, with Goku alive, Gohan will continue his training as well, even though Chi-Chi is kind of reluctant about this. But Goku imposes his will on all his family members, so we continue on from there, with Gohan continuing his training with Goku. And another thing to note is that Goten also trains with Goku. So Goten is stronger in this scenario as well. After training for some time, Nappa actually catches up to Piccolo in terms of power, so they actually end up being training partners. The rest of the Saiyans were too far out of their league, so they relied on each other to get stronger, which provided some friendly and good competition. Meanwhile, Vegeta, who was originally a solitary person, decides to actually start training with Goku after he realizes how valuable having a training partner is. They provided motivation for each other, and they pushed each other to become stronger versions of themselves. So in this case, because he had ample opportunities to spar with Goku, he will not actually have the mindset of becoming Majin here. So take note of that as we move into the Buu saga. As usual, Gohan enters high school and meets Videl. Afterwards, he would teach Videl how to fly, and then they would enter the World Tournament saga. So before we move on to the World Tournament, take note that Nappa has achieved Super Saiyan Blue as well during this time skip. Alright, let us continue. So Goten and Trunks fight it out as usual, with Trunks aging Goten out for the win because he's slightly older than Goten. Meanwhile, Shin arrives on the scene with Kibito, and this is where the events start changing rapidly. The Z fighters have all trained with God Ki for a long period of time. Now they could sense God Ki, and they could immediately feel that these two were not simple mortals. They possess godly ki, and immediately Piccolo is intrigued. Were these some sort of deities that he was unaware of? How could this be? He had no idea who these two were. And Shin immediately walks up to them, handing Goku the handshake, telling Goku that his spirit was very pure. And immediately Goku is serious. He had no idea who this individual was, but he could be a threat. Immediately he cuts to the chase, asking Shin why he was here. Piccolo judged it as well, asking him whether he was a god. And Shin was surprised. How could these mortals actually tell who he was? So Shin actually explains to them his plan. His plan to stop the revival of Majin Buu. Created from magic, Majin Buu was a monster that wanted only destruction and threatened the entire universe. Supreme Kai knew this firsthand. After all, Majin Buu was the reason he was the last surviving member of the Supreme Kais. Goku knew that this was a serious matter and immediately asked Supreme Kai what his plan was. So Supreme Kai briefly elaborates his plan, saying that they wanted to find a Z fighter that had enough energy to attract Yamu and Popovich to absorb the energy. Afterwards, they would follow Yamu and Popovich to the hideout. Goku immediately disapproves of such a plan. However, Piccolo butted in, saying that he would be the one to get his energy absorbed. After all, he had decades of experience, and he could control his energy output very well. So Goku begrudgingly agrees, and the events continue as usual, with Yamu completely obliterating Videl. Gohan was pissed off as his aura erupts till he transforms into a Super Saiyan. Goku puts a hand on his shoulder, telling Gohan to calm down. This was not the time to jeopardize the plan already set in motion. Gohan reluctantly powers down, and now Piccolo steps onto the scene. He powers up as much as possible, or as much as possible to attract Yamu and Popovich. As Yamu and Popovich lunge towards him, Piccolo begrudgingly stands still. He could just swat them away like flies, but this was part of the plan. So Piccolo gets his energy absorbed and Yamu and Popovich escape the scene. Piccolo stands back up. He was a bit drained, but it wasn't too bad. He hid most of his energy from Yamu and Popovich anyways. Piccolo stands up and follows the rest of the Z fighters who have already given chase to Yamu and Popovich. They all arrive at the hideout. As the Z fighters arrive at Babade's ship, they witness firsthand the merciless slaughtering of Yamu and Popovich. Dabura looks behind him and tells Babadi that there were a few more cockroaches that he had to eliminate before they moved on to Plan B. Dabura immediately disappears before their eyes as he blitzes towards the group at alarming speeds. Will Z fighters be able to handle Dabura? Will they be able to handle the rest of Babadi's minions? Will they be able to stop Majin Buu's revival? All these are questions that we will answer on the next part on Dragon Ball Z.